Good evening, everybody. My name is Kevin Papa. Welcome to another edition of the Coach's Corner. Joining me, as always, to my left is the coach, Ian Bain. Coach, we're coming here live from the Rail Republic House. Good food, good drink, great people, great staff. Come on down to Franklin, Massachusetts. Enjoy a good meal at the Public House. All right, Coach, let's get right at it. 21-14 road win at Attleboro. There's no easy games in the Hawk. You're down, though, 14-7 to a one-win team. People outside of the organization, friends and family and commentators always say, "Oh, what adjustments? What adjustments? What adjustments?" Do you make adjustments at half, or is it just let's stay the course?
Adjustments I think come more so from, at least in our deal. It's not so much about drawing up something brand new, although that can happen. I think a lot of times that those things don't work when you draw them up for the first time and expect your players to go out and execute them. But I think it comes just like, they might be showing a couple different things. So hopefully we've put in some answers throughout the course of training camp or the season. And kind of understanding, all right, on first down they're showing a lot of this, on second down they're showing a lot of this, on third down they're showing a lot of this. They really didn't make a certain adjustment to this formation. They didn't make a certain adjustment to this coverage we were in. We were successful with this pressure, but not that pressure. So it's more conversations like that, trying to kind of figure out, okay, when we come out in the second half, at least again in our world, it's just the adjustments are going to be more so like what parts of the game plan do we want to maybe highlight or elevate, and maybe what parts of the game plan, like, this isn't working quite the way we thought. Something's going on differently throughout the game. And a lot of times, too, it might even just come down to managing your own roster. Who's healthy, who's feeling good, who's not, and how does that dictate your calls and your procedures in the second half.
Again, a couple long touchdowns. Is that, I know we talk about it every week, as you go into the fourth quarter, is that just something that just sits on your shoulders? God, at any second they could hit us for one, or is that just something it just happens when it happens?
It happens when it happens. I mean, if you, at least just philosophically, we're never going to coach scared. We're never going to act scared. You got to play the game a certain way. We don't like giving up big plays. We try our best to minimize them defensively, and we try our best to exploit them offensively, but stylistically, sometimes we don't execute to the best of our ability. We don't call things to the best of our ability. So sometimes we're not getting the big plays we probably should, and sometimes we're giving up the big plays that we probably shouldn't. But that, we do our best not to focus on the past in that situation, just focus on moving forward and getting into the next play and next call and so on.
So we go to the third quarter, there's no scoring. We actually turn the ball over in the end zone. Then we get it back. Zabriskie gets a nice 45-yard, or gets us a punt return to their 45-yard line, which flips the field around. There's a huge third down middle screen to Frollo. He slips. It could have been probably a lot more. Crappy night, as always, on every weekend. Walshy makes a catch. Stefan gets a catch. There's a great pass to Trianis that I'll talk about a little later. And then Zabriskie shuttles it in. Yeah. So it's 14-14. You're in the fourth quarter. What's your mindset at this point?
Just stay the course. I mean, it's football. It's never perfect. Some games feel better than others, but you're in the game. We're not losing, right? We're tied up,
right.
and sometimes that pressure. I can't speak for everybody on our team, but if it's a tie game in the fourth quarter, I don't feel like the pressure at that point's on us. It's on the opponent.
Sure.
We just got to go execute, and we got to play good football. And I'm sure that they don't feel the pressure. They probably think the pressure's on us, our opponent.
Right.
I think that sometimes when you're in the moment and it's competition, like people on the outside view some of those things differently than the people in the mix. And I think it's just like, all right, now we got to get a stop and we got to get a score. Like that's pretty much all we're thinking about at that point is just, all right, what's the next series going to hold? And let's get good field position on the kickoff. Limited them to a first down or less and get the ball back with good field position.
Right, and then on that the final drive, we go 10 plays, a bunch of first downs. It's a really nice methodical drive. You have a nice flow with Howard and Frollo going on. I know Davidi came back early and then re-injured himself. Talk about that Frollo Howard, Frollo Davidi, Frollo Howard Davidi. It's sort of like bang bang and a little bit of finesse.
I think we're fortunate that we have a lot of players that are pretty talented. I mean, yet again, a lot of guys had catches, a lot of guys had plays to move the sticks, plays to get first downs. Defensively, same thing. Different guys getting sacks, different guys getting tackles. But just speaking to the offense and to that drive, I think everybody has confidence that they can do it. I think the biggest thing is getting kids to buy in and the understanding. Our best group with this concept was in 2021 when we had all these great players. You had Kindred, you had Tracy, you had Gula, you had Aroni.
We're going to hit on that later, too.
And not a single one of them cared.
Right.
They were just like, I'm going to do my job, and whatever the game plan allows, this is what we're going to do. And there was never anything like that. So it's nice when you have a group. I think sometimes that can be harder to defend, and it's a lot better as a play caller when you have 5 or 6 guys that you're comfortable with versus just 1 or just 2.
Sure. Cody busted in after a really nice Justin third and 12 run. He gets third and 10. He gets 12.
Yeah.
And then we busted in. Defense closes it out with really 3 crazy pass attempts. The kid from Attleboro, he's a young kid, right?
No, he's a senior. He's a third year kid.
He was running around like Fran Tarkenton.
Yeah, he's got that ability. He's a very dangerous scrambler.
Yeah, especially on the last play of the game. He was all over the map. But he's throwing the ball against his body, and that's just a really hard throw to do, especially at that age. Let's talk about young. We win the game, and that's the most important thing. But I want to talk about young players and growing pains. And I'm going to use the quarterback for an example, just because he's the quarterback and they stand out. I thought Justin, at the end of the third quarter, he's scrambling, makes an ill-advised pass. It's sort of a floater. It doesn't look like much confidence on the ball, and it's picked off. But then in the fourth quarter, he zips a laser on 2nd and 7 to Triana's, where he looks like he's been playing the game for 52 years. I mean, and it's plant, it's throw, it's right on the numbers, and it's a first down. You have a very young team right now, based on injuries, based on just where you are. Is that something, are the growing pains just something you deal with? It almost reminds me of that COVID year with a lot of those guys that you just mentioned, getting a lot of play on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that the players are so hard on themselves. It's trying to get players to understand that, like, not that we don't want to purposely make mistakes, but mistakes happen. You learn from mistakes. I think all of us learn more in making mistakes than we do from just being successful. And I think, too, it's a great challenge for our coaching staff and myself to make sure we're getting those young players in positions where they're comfortable, where they have knowledge of what we're doing. They're physically capable of performing a task. And, sometimes it's like, you make a call and it's like, all right, that didn't go great, but we really didn't play to that kid's strength there either.
Right.
Like we tried to do too much,
Mm-hmm.
And it is hard because, like, I'll just stick with Justin. He has all that talent. And sometimes, I think he expects that he's going to be able to make every single play and every single throw perfectly every time. And sometimes I think too, and it's like, we both have to kind of meet in the middle and just be like, all right, what are we comfortable with? What are you seeing? What do you like? I can do this. I like this. I don't like this. Yeah, I don't want to call that, simplifying some things. And obviously, I mean, it's just funny because we've seen that so often where maybe there's a moment or two where, like, yep, you look like a junior, first-year starter, and then it's like the end of the Taunton game, those moments in that North game, moments in Duxbury, and then obviously Attleboro, who, I think we felt like we underperformed at times in that game, but when it became crunch time, it's like the ability really rises out of the group. So that was really good to see. But it's been a challenge, and Justin hasn't shied away from that challenge, which is good.
No, and I'm telling you, that throw to Trianis is as good as I've seen.
Yeah.
And it's only a 7-yard throw, but it was fantastic.
Oh, great read, good ball.
It was just perfect.
Yep.
All right, so you're on to Milford this week. Very good team.
Yep.
A win will move you up in the rankings, and this is the last chance to move.
I don't
Maybe,
even know.
right.
Yeah,
and a loss could move you down.
Yep.
What do you expect to see out of Milford?
I mean, they've got a lot of really good players. I know they've had an injury or two as well. I think at this time of year everybody does. But they're really well coached on both sides of the ball. They're very good in the kicking game. Their kicker punter's outstanding. They cover kicks well. They've got explosive skill players. They're always big up front. They've got a pretty unique and diverse pressure package. And, they don't just sit in one coverage. They mix in a few that they're really comfortable with, but they've also made adjustments to get into other coverages this year. So there's a lot to prepare for, skill-wise, scheme-wise. They've got some new players as well. But hey, they're whatever they are, 6-1. Right now, they've played a really good schedule up to this point. It's a rivalry game, so I think it's just really focusing on the down-to-down basis and making sure that we are comfortable and confident, and we're ready to compete at a high level.
All right, a couple of youth style questions.
Yeah.
My personal team, the 8th grade, is going to have to play Saturday night and then turn around and play a playoff game Wednesday night. Shout out to the 8th graders. If we win, we clinch the number 1 seed for the playoffs. And great work by the coaches and the players. How do you adjust? I mean, football is it's a game of everybody is doing the same thing all the time. How do you adjust to a change like that?
Meaning going from regular season to postseason?
Regular season to postseason, and then maybe a shorter week because of that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
or even like Thanksgiving week.
I think 2 things. I think if you're treating the postseason, the regular season differently, then you're not treating the regular season right. You only get a finite amount of games. At best, say in high school, you only get 44 games, and most kids will never play 44 games. Right? You get your 4 years. So for a lot of kids, you're only starting 11 games. Some kids, they might only start a handful of games. So every game's a playoff game, and that's the great thing about football. I think that's why it got the best ratings, is because every game truly does matter, right? So it's not like baseball or basketball. Like NBA starts tonight. If the Celtics lose, is anybody going to be like, "Oh, their season's up"? No, it's not like that. But in college football and the NFL, every week is so important, and in high school and in youth, it's like that too. So I think the good thing is, it's the playoffs, but you shouldn't feel like it's any more stressful or any less stressful, because that's how every game is. It's so valuable and critical. As far as the short week goes, that's a totally different conversation, because you got to get guys healthy. Hopefully, at this point though in the season, you're able to do more things in uppers. You're able to do more things in helmets. You're able to focus more on. I think back to 2021 where we played Springfield Central on Saturday, then played KP on Thursday. And like a lot of our players, they have such a physical game against Springfield. Then you got to play another physical game. It's like, we just walked through. I think in the NFL, when they go Sunday, Thursday, they're not practicing. They're just walking through. It's you've hopefully you've had your training camp, you've had your preseason stuff, you've had your season practices, and at that point, it's like, guys, we're going to practice hard, but we're going to be mentally sharp. And I think there's a lot to be said about those mental days where it's like, let's do everything at half speed. Let's shrink in the drill a little bit. And like what we've done a lot is, instead of doing full line run or full line blocking drills, like make it a one-on-one period with more space, and just be like, look, you know what your job is in an over front or a 5-man front. You're lining up on this guy. All right, we're gonna have a tackle, an end, a center, a quarterback, a running back. We're gonna run an outside run, and now you got to play and you got to fit the run as if the rest of the defense is. So now you test their discipline, their mental ability. You're not banging as many bodies. You're not worried about guys getting rolled up on. It's still a little physical, but it's like, all right, now you can rest for a couple minutes. And so it's about getting creative on your drill work, and how do you sell it to your kids that, like, this is really, really important. I know we're not banging hard and we're not doing Oklahomas, which nobody's doing anymore anyways, but you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, this is still really important. You can get a lot out of this drill, but you got to do it right. You got to do it the way we're coaching you to do it, so that we can get our work in, but then also be ready and fresh for Wednesday or whatever day you're playing that game.
Absolutely. So then the last question I have for you tonight, or the last thing I want you to comment on, is, I know you were a big fan of last year's 4th grade team. You had them to the basketball game after they won everything. And this year, because of that, they got an influx of people who wanted to play, and they had to split it up, and the town was in an uproar for whatever reason.
Of course.
Breaking up dynasties in 4th grade. They're lined up to play what I like to call the Civil War, which would be the second round of the playoffs. The last time that has happened in Franklin wasn't in the playoffs, but it was for the number 1 seed.
Gasparo and
it was Gasparo, and you're right. It was so
guys.
You had Gula, Will Tracy, Jared Aroni, Kindred, Joey T, Sosi, Griff, Marino. Parents are parents. They're going to look at it any way they want. They're going to, it's going to be really hard on them. I felt the kids came out of that game fantastic. Right. A lot of them went to sleepovers that night. Right. Talk about how tight, though, that team was when you ended up coaching. I mean, the Springfield Central game alone is one of the greatest games ever played.
I mean, I think one of the things is obviously very talented, so that obviously kind of makes a lot of things go well. But yeah, they came up together, they played together. Some kids, maybe focus on a different sport. Lazaro was on that team. He ended up being a great lacrosse player. I get it. I'm sure we lost a kid or two to a private school from that group. Maybe, I don't know.
I'll tell you Matty Lazaro's story from that game. He gets hurt. He hurts his shoulder in that game or his leg. He can barely walk. So I take his helmet so he can't go back in. And then 2 minutes later, I see him on the field. He took some other kid's helmet.
That sounds like him.
Yeah, he's a tough kid.
But I think that the biggest thing is, like, we get caught up sometimes in competition and all this, which we should. But also, there's something about healthy competition where, like, you can go against somebody. Like, I think it's just a Hockomock league, and just speaking for myself, like, being friends with so many of the coaches in the league. And, like, Brian Lee, and we're going to play on Thanksgiving. And for those 4 quarters, we're going to try to beat each other. And our teams are going to go at each other, and it's going to be a battle for sure. But, like, when the game's over, we're going to shake each other's hands, and we're going to be men, and we're going to be friends, and we're going to be colleagues.
I know you're very good friends with Mike Redding.
Mike Redding and Sid and just all the coaches in our league are great like that. And I think there's something about healthy competition where none of the coaches, for example, are going to get on Twitter afterwards and chirp the other guy and be like, so-and-so did that was a terrible call. If anything, we're going to be like, hey, great game. Respect the game, respect each other. So I think that in terms of the closeness, I think when you have that competition and it's quality competition and it's good on good, and then there's that healthy level of respect and appreciation for the game and the opportunity, and understanding, like, it's not like this is going to be an awesome game between this team, and it was an awesome game back when, I mean, we're still talking about it, but like, I don't know what the score was. I forget what kid was on what team.
2-point score.
I know it was a close game, but like, I forget what kid was on what team, and I know you remember because you're right in the mix. But my point just is, in the greater scheme of things, it's like what was best for the program long haul, and it was those two teams. And I know there were people that were like, I hope this goes well. I hope it doesn't turn chippy. I hope it doesn't turn into my team beat your team. It never did. And as they got older, that became a huge positive because it stayed. I always felt it stayed a big picture focus, where neither side became petty, or it was just a healthy competition. So I think it's awesome. And if we've got 2 Franklin teams, whatever round that is, whether it's 8 teams left or 14, if we've got 2 Franklin teams going in the playoffs and competing, like, that's how many kids in Franklin playing football. The sport is healthy. They're getting coached because those staffs, I know, work really hard. Like, that's what you want. So it's great. I can't think of a single negative or detraction from that, except, let's keep the big picture in mind and let's keep healthy competition alive.
Right. The goal is to get to high school and enjoy your high school.
Right.
So that'll do it for us tonight from the Coach's Corner here at the Rail Republic House. Come on down, have a good meal. For the coach Ian Bain, my name is Kevin Papa, and we'll see you after Milford.